Let's get it going with the top 10 matchup, one of 3 matchups between undefeated teams, as we discussed. Number 10, Penn State at number 5, Michigan. Michigan still sitting right around the touchdown, 7 points, over under around 51. Anyone going to take a lock on this Big Ten East battle?
I am.
Let's do it.
Under 51.5. We talked about it on yesterday's show. This is a game where we're probably going to learn more about either one of these teams than we've learned at any point so far this season. But from what I have seen, I have a lot more confidence in the 2 defenses than I do the offenses. I think that since Michigan got out of its non-con and got into the Big Ten, it's still been good, but offensively, it's very choppy. It's very inefficient. It's relying on big plays from Blake Corum, and they're not really finding a whole lot elsewhere. I think Penn State, if you looked at their rushing game early in the season, it's pretty decent, but Nick Singleton's been kind of bottled up a bit since they've gotten into Big Ten play. Their offensive line has played better than we're used to seeing from Penn State, but they haven't really faced a whole lot of excellent defensive fronts aside from their season opener against Purdue. And that was the night where Sean Clifford was getting beat up, got hurt, had to leave for a while because he got, I think it was a hip pointer or some knee injury. I can't remember what it was at this point. And that was the night he was under more pressure than any other game we've seen. So I look at this game, I don't think it's going to be high scoring. And if you just look at the recent history of it, like out of the last 8 years, only 2 of the games have hit 50 points, let alone hit 52. So I don't know. I don't think this is going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to take the under, and I don't know who's going to win, but I don't think they're going to score more than 27 points getting there.
Lock it up.
Same thing?
Yep.
All right.
I think you've got 2 incredible defenses. I think you've got 2 incredible running backs in Corum versus Singleton. I think you have 2 coaches who understand the identity of their football teams that kind of no matter what is happening, they're going to stay committed to the run. Now, I think Michigan will be more tempted to take some shots down the field. I think they might trust J.J. McCarthy a little bit more, try to get him to hit on some of those big plays because the opportunity will be there. But I'm not really worried about either quarterback, throwing pick sixes. I think they're both kind of they're well taught into what we are, and it's a great defense and it's a great run game, and let's not screw this thing up. And I think this will be a bloodbath. I think it'll be a couple heavyweights trading blows, the difference of a couple of plays here and there, and I think it's ultimately going to be low scoring. I love it.
I lean Penn State plus the points, but do not feel confident enough to play it. That probably plays more into the low scoring, right? Just I don't think Michigan has, against a quality opponent, hit the gear where they're just going to run away from Penn State. If that happens, I will have equal amounts of positive thoughts about Michigan and also disappointment for a Penn State team that I think they were off last week, right? Or was last week the Northwestern game?
Penn State was off last week.
Yeah. If you come off the off week, show up in Ann Arbor and get dusted, then that is equally impressive by Michigan and also massively disappointing for a Penn State fan. I think it's going to be close. I think it's probably a 3, 4, 7-point game. So I would lean Penn State, but no official lock from me. Bud, you got any thought on this one? Bud and the mute button.
It's a war that
we got the vacuum going downstairs and the 1-year-old. So I lean Penn State here, but it's not enough for me to bet at 7. I'd put a little something on at 7.5 if it creeps back up.
Dustin in the chat asked, "What's the starting name right tackle for Penn State?" It's Caden Wallace. So now you know.
Was somebody trying to check you on your knowledge?
Somebody asked Bud for the name of the starting right tackle for Penn State.
Well, if he tells you about the Temple defense, he can certainly tell you about the starting right tackle for Penn State. All right, there's some more top 25 action there in the noon slate. Maybe we'll cycle back if nobody ends up dropping a lock on it. But we need to just go ahead and get there because we need to give a proper amount of time to number 3, Alabama, at number 6, Tennessee. It is your SEC on CBS game of the week. Neyland Stadium is going to be on fire. Not like when that boat was actually on fire at the Vol Navy, in which time it was more of an ominous sign of where Tennessee football was. I'm just talking about the excitement. This got to be the first time that Tennessee fans are showing up with cigars in their pocket thinking they'll actually light them. This has got to be the most confident that a Tennessee fan has gone into that stadium feeling like they've got a shot at Alabama. The Crimson Tide are a 7-point favorite in this game, over under around 65.5. Look, I hope that we've got locks on this game, but if not, we got to dig into all the different ways that this thing can be bet, because it's a banger. So where are we at with Alabama, Tennessee? Let's start it off. Who's got a lock? All right.
Do you want to go first, Danny?
Sure. I'll go first. It's at 7 right now, right?
Yep.
Before it gets to 7.5, let me go ahead and scoop up the Tide. Sorry, Jordan. I wonder if all those Tennessee fans can sell their cigars to the Bama fans after this one that are going to be at the game. I kind of like, I'm torn, because I would love to see Tennessee get off I would love to see them pull off this upset, something they haven't done, 15 years. I'd love to see it. I feel like, and Tennessee's an awesome story, and they're a much better team last year, and you've got these two opposing forces, right? Tennessee comes in with a ton of momentum, and it feels like Bama is vulnerable, which I do think they're more vulnerable than they've been in years past. But I still think you've got to consider, because I think this is about Bryce Young returning too. Let's just make that clear. Like if we see Jalen Milroe out there, I'm running to the board and hedging somehow. I'm fine and taking the other side. Okay, so let's just make that clear. I think Bryce Young is playing. So you've got the best quarterback who makes a massive difference in this system. You've got Will Anderson, who really hasn't been as dominant as last year, but he's been the kind of one, like, this defense is not as dominant as it's been in years past. Statistically, it's doing better, but it's not as dominant. And then you got Nick Saban. I think this game is about Bama kind of reminding people where they are and where Tennessee is. And I think it's close, but I think Bama pulls away late. So give me those. I'll lay those 7 points here on the road.
Do I come to Jordan's defense and take up arms against Daniel? No, I'm going to bet the under instead. I'm going to take the under 66, because the way I see this one breaking down, if Bryce Young is back, and I expect he is based on this spread, he did hurt his throwing shoulder. So is he 100% just 2 weeks later? Is he still only like 75, 80% and playing through it? I don't know. I don't expect Alabama to be chucking the ball down the field all day if there's any questions about his shoulder. If it's Jalen Milroe starting, we know they won't be chucking it down the field. So I do think that because of health, and just because of, kind of the matchup where they're going to want to keep the Tennessee offense off the field, I think we're going to see Alabama lean a little heavier on its run game in this one. And I think on the other side, like Danny, you mentioned Will Anderson, he hasn't been as dominant as he was last year, although he is still garnering first place votes from the Athletics Heisman straw poll. But anyways, he's still having a very good season. But if you're Tennessee, like, you have to slow him down. And what's the best way to slow Will Anderson down? Run the ball. Like, if they have to respect your ability to run the ball, it's going to slow them down up front and kind of take it away. So I could see both of these teams taking that sort of approach. We're going to see, it's going to limit possessions. And I just think that, honestly, 66 is a little too high. I think they're counting a little too much on Tennessee's offense being great when Tennessee hasn't faced a defense this good yet. So give me the under 66.
I thought about fighting Tom here, but I'm not going to. I'm actually going to go Alabama team total over 36.5.
Ooh.
So again, I think Bryce is playing. I want to just pose a question to you guys. You have a chance to design a fantasy team of the best 4 quarters of quarterback play that Tennessee's defense has faced so far this year. I assume we're going to take Keaton Slovis first half. Who is your second half? Is it Anthony Richardson? Certainly not Daniels. I mean, Akron.
It's probably Anthony Richardson, right? He had the better.
Yeah. I think Tennessee's defense is kind of suspect. And I did think about over here. I make it like 67. So I just think that without Burrell, who's out for the year, right? And then we can say McCullough is the guy who got arrested is not good, but he's still starting for you. And he's played, 200 snaps? So what does that say about the backups? I think Bama can get to 40 here. I just don't know if they're going to get enough stops to cover the 7. But Bama team total for me.
Tom and I on lock agreements are 0-3 on the season.
Yeah, we are. I think Danny and I are like 1-5, but I don't think that's you and Danny. I think that's just me.
I mentioned on the Early Edge show yesterday that my lean here is with Tom. It's with the under, and I would almost like lean a fight against Bud because Alabama, with the exception of the really fast start against Arkansas, which I was saying on CBS Sports HQ is probably one of the biggest keys for Alabama is to get off to a fast start. Like this offense has been different on the road. This offense has been different on the road all the way going back to last season. Bryce Young has been different on the road. He's been able to come up with some heroics. Obviously, the Texas game earlier this year, the Iron Bowl last year. I don't know. I lean under. No official lock for me. Also in the 3:30, undefeated against undefeated. Oklahoma State 5-0. TCU 5-0. Game's going to be in Fort Worth. The Horned Frogs are 4-point home favorites, over under of 68.5. Who's got a lock? Over. We will continue to play these TCU overs as long as they continue to field an offense that, yes, is one of the nation's best, but the points that they give up are continuing to rise. I know that we got really lucky with that Kansas game, but we also did that with superstar backup Jason Bean. Also, Oklahoma State's defense giving up a bunch of points. I mean, thank goodness Spencer Sanders is on a roll and playing terrific football right now. I think this one goes back and forth. I think this one is finishing in the 70s. So give me the over 68.5 for Oklahoma State TCU.
I don't hate it. I'm not betting anything in this game. I don't know. I don't know. I fear TCU's in for a letdown of sorts because they've been flying high the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah. You're on that, like the stacking Oklahoma on top of Kansas. You had SMU even before that. Mm-hmm. Are they gonna burn out? Or
they are college kids, and we see it every single year with a bunch of different teams.
I saw Texas Tech put up 527. I saw Baylor put up 457. Central Michigan got over 500. Like Oklahoma State's doing a good job of coming up with third down stops and getting it where they can. But I think there's going to be a boatload of yards and points in this game.
I agree with you. Chip, not lock agreement, but similar lock. I'm going over 34 in the first half. Keep in mind, one of Oklahoma State's starting safeties got tossed for targeting in the second half, which means he will be down in the first half. Oklahoma State has also been able to score in the first half of games, as they did against Baylor. TCU, I think, will do a pretty good job of getting points early in this one. Yeah, I think over 34 is a good look here in the first half. But I agree it'll be pointsy.
All right, let's take it on into the night slate. Let's see. Which one do y'all want to give? Let's just go ahead and do number 7 USC at number 20 Utah. This is the undefeated Trojans find themselves as 3.5-point underdogs, over under of 65. Who is going to step into this arena? Where? All right, Danny, go ahead. Go for it.
Give me the Utes. Lay them points. I think the Utah back-to-back losses, struggling somewhat, need a win, a little more desperation for them. I think the UCLA game was more about UCLA's physicality, being able to match that, being a really good football team, than it was about Utah being down. Not back-to-back losses. I'm just thinking about the Florida game. They also could have won. I think Utah could easily be a one-loss team. If one of those plays, if Tavion Thomas doesn't slip, they beat the Gators. And then all of a sudden, like, are we talking about this game the same way? I think that's why the line is where it is. Even though Utah's a 2-loss team, I think Vegas knows. I think playing at Rice Eccles, the place is going to be absolutely on fire. Jordan Addison, a little bit dinged up. You've got an offense that has not been as prolific lately as we thought it was going to be at USC. And I think you are going to see Utah content to run, work in some Cam Rising, coming off a rough game for him. But I think this game will be when USC comes back to earth somewhat. So give me the Utes and lay the 3.5.
Man, I took some USC on Sunday, and the more I looked at this, the more I think Danny's got the right side. You know, I'm a little sketchy about USC on the road here. And like you guys know, I've been betting against Utah for weeks. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're that great, but they are a little different at home. They might be able to do some things that can frustrate USC in a way that they couldn't frustrate UCLA. We'll see.
I'm not locking it up, but he's thrown one all season. Find the interception prop on Caleb Williams and take the over half. He's going to throw an interception in this game.
14 touchdowns to 1 interception. The man has thrown less than 52% in terms of completion percentage in 2 of the last 3 games. This offense is really like as much about whether Travis Dye can move the ball on the ground against this Utah defense as anything else. And that's going to be massively important. 10 interceptions also for Utah. That is 3rd in the country. They are darn good at turning them over. And you mentioned playing at home, 81-25 in the Kyle Whittingham era in Salt Lake City in Rice-Eccles Stadium. Now, USC did win last time they were there, 33-17. But I don't know if y'all remember this. It was so cold at the game that the TV feed cut out. They could not operate the cameras, and they could not operate all the, which I think I remember at the time joking that the cameramen and camera women were just like, nope, I'm out. Pass. I'm a union hire. We're not doing this right now. It's too cold. But yeah, the ESPN feed cut out. It was so cold. The USC rode a big field goal kicking day to a 33-17 win, but that was their first win in Salt Lake City since 2012. It is 4-3 to Utah in terms of when these two teams have played in Rice-Eccles. Yeah, Matt, huge game, fascinating. One of the games of the year in the Pac-12, no doubt.